Iraqi leadership?
Well, I get along very well with the Iraqi leadership. Thank you.
Governor posted on social media that they're planning to seal the 2026 midterm elections. In fact, he says the plan is already underway. How do you respond to Governor Pritzker?
Well, he's got to focus on crime in his state. The crime in his state is doing very badly. If we went and took care of it, what we would do, just like Washington, D.C., we have no crime. Memphis, it's down 82%. Louisiana, you take a look at Louisiana. What he should really do is focus on crime in his state, because there's too much of it.
Have you made a final decision of Iran? Have you made a final decision of Iran? Have you made a final decision?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't.
Do you believe that Iran is going to nuclear weapons?
If negotiations break down with Iran?
Well, we haven't made a final decision. We're not exactly happy with the way they negotiated. They cannot have nuclear weapons, and we're not thrilled with the way they're negotiating. So we'll see how it all works. Decision. We're not exactly happy with the way they're negotiated. They cannot have nuclear weapons, and we're not thrilled with the way they're negotiating. So we'll see how it all works. The Cuban government is talking with us, and they're in a big deal of trouble, as you know. They have no money, they have no anything right now, but they're talking with us, and maybe we'll have a friendly takeover of Cuba. We could very well end up having a friendly takeover of Cuba.
What about the votes, sir?
After many, many years, we've had a lot of years of dealing with Cuba. I've been hearing about Cuba since I'm a little boy, but they're in big trouble, and we could very well, something good, I think very positive for the people that were expelled or worse from Cuba that live here. You know, we have people living here that want to go back to Cuba, and they're very happy with what's going on.
The last news of F-35, in particular between Tohid and what about that?
I don't know anything about the Epstein files, you know. I've been fully exonerated. Yeah,
With the documents that you've been briefed on for Iran, is there a risk that strikes could turn into a long, drawn-out conflict in the Middle East?
I guess you could say there's always a risk. You know, when there's war, there's a risk in anything, both good and bad. We've had tremendous luck with myself, Soleimani, al-Baghdadi, everything's worked out, and then we do the Midnight Hammer and so many others. Everything's worked out, and we want to keep it that way, but we're going to see. Look, it'd be wonderful if they'd negotiate really in good conscience, good faith and conscience, but they are not getting there. So far, Peter, they're not getting there.
And has your team told you that if you use the military now, that there will be regime change right away?
No, nobody's told me that. You don't know. I mean, nobody knows. There might be, and there might not be. It'd be nice if we could do it without, but sometimes you have to do it with. When you looked at look, we have the greatest military anywhere in the world. There's nothing close. I'd love not to use it, but sometimes you have to.
Mr. President, to be clear,
Well, Cuba's doing very badly. They're failing. Cuba right now is, to put it mildly, a failing nation. And I've been hearing about Cuba. I said before, since I'm a little boy, I've been hearing about Cuba, and everybody wanted to change. And I can see that happening. Marco Rubio is dealing on it, and at a very high level. And, you know, they have no money, they have no oil, they have no food. And it's really right now a nation in deep trouble, and they want our help.
Mr. President, Iran is
Well, there we go. That is Donald Trump there speaking to the press, really taking a lot of questions about Cuba, saying that perhaps there will be a friendly takeover of the country, and talking here about the country being a failed state, talking about that the matters being dealt with, and Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, is dealing with it, saying they've got no oil and that they're a failing nation. But also, he mentioned Iran as well, saying that essentially they're not happy, or he's not happy, with the way things went with the talks that we've just had. Osama bin Javed is standing by in Geneva. Tohid Asadi is in the Iranian capital, Tehran, and Nour Odeh is in Ramallah. But first, let's get to our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett, who's in Washington. Kimberly, I mean, he says he's not happy with these talks. Now, they've ultimately, before this, had very little in terms of messaging after these talks wrapped up. What do we know?
Well, what we know is that if you look at the language of the Trump administration in recent weeks, it appears that the goalpost continues to move in terms of what Iran needs to do to meet U.S. expectations. The U.S. president has been very clear that there is a desire on the part of the United States for no nuclear weapon. That means a halt, zero uranium enrichment. But at the same time, what we know is the U.S. has also been adding to those demands, saying that there needs to also be a limit on the ballistic missile program and support for regional proxies. And this is, again, something that has been difficult to achieve for Iran, because every time there is a round of negotiation, it seems that the demands by the United States become that much greater. And so what you heard from the U.S. president just now is that he says he's not happy with how the negotiations went in Geneva on Thursday. Whether or not he's intimating that the United States made further demands, we don't know. But what he did say is there's more talking that will be taking place on Friday. And what we can discern from that is that he's referring to the Omani foreign minister that will be here in Washington meeting with J.D. Vance, the U.S. vice president, where that will be not negotiation, but diplomatic consultation, perhaps even to see if the United States can yield concessions and what Tehran's stance is.
Now, Kimberly, as you just mentioned, I mean, J.D. Vance is set to meet the Omani foreign minister. Now, what kind of impact will that have on the discussions?
Well, it's very clear that the United States is seeking to really take a dual track here. On the one hand, you heard the U.S. president just now talking about whether or not he would use the U.S. military and use a strike. And he said, we don't want to, but sometimes you have to. But he also said he has not made a final decision. And that's the key there. He's still getting input. And after covering Donald Trump on and off for the better part of a decade, I can tell you that he is a person that takes a variety of opinions before making a decision. And given the fact that he knows that J.D. Vance is very adept at foreign policy, it's clear he wants to get that perspective. He also is getting the perspective of Marco Rubio, his Secretary of State, who we know will be traveling to Israel on Monday and Tuesday of next week. So the U.S. president telling us in real time there, no decision made yet on whether or not he will take military action against Iran. Instead, taking the time to get the opinions of some of his trusted advisors before making that decision.
Thanks, Kimberly. Let's get it over now and kick it out to Tehran, where we have Tohid Asadi. Now, Tohid, we have the Foreign Minister, Mr. Rakji, urging the U.S. to stop making excessive demands. Now, what does he mean by that?
Well, actually, he refers to the so many sticking points that exist out there, not just in terms of the nuclear dossier of the country, but also in terms of a longer list of controversies when it comes to the ties between Iran and the United States. First, let's speak about the nuclear dossier, which was a key point of concern. The topic on the agenda, we had the negotiations yesterday in Geneva, following which Iranian Foreign Minister said progress has been made. But right now we see a quite different statement from the U.S. President Donald Trump. It's saying that he's not happy with this entire trajectory of diplomatic engagement. And as I told you, there are so many knots that need to be untangled, specifically regarding this nuclear dossier. We know that when it comes to modalities related to the inspection, and when it comes to the stockpile of enriched uranium, and when it comes to the entire process of enrichment inside Iran, these are controversial issues. The U.S. is reportedly calling for a zero enrichment offer, while Iran says it's not going to take such an offer. Also, as I told you, there is this longer list, and that is related to ballistic missiles, defense capabilities, regional relations of Iran. For the time being, Tehran says it is off the table of the negotiations, but still, whether on the table or off the table, we know that these are actors and factors putting a certain amount of impact when it comes to the entire body of the literature or the rhetoric between the two sides and the realities on the ground. And again, speaking of the reality on the ground, we also have to keep in mind that there is a major military buildup in the region by the Americans, in response to which Tehran says it's ready for a full range of scenarios, including a confrontation, including a regional war. And that is also another layer of complexity in this already delicate situation. The two sides are saying that what tops the list of their priorities is diplomacy, and there is a preference for diplomacy over war. But whether or not diplomacy could pave the way for a solution remains to be seen.
Thanks, Tohid. Let's go 1,700 miles west-southwest of Tehran to Ramallah on the occupied West Bank and join Nour Odeh. Nour, what is going on in Israel? Reports suggest preparations have begun to face the fallout of a possible conflict. So give us a sketch.
Well, Israel is preparing for that possibility. In fact, for weeks now, we've been hearing Israeli commentary about when the U.S. will attack Iran, not if. In fact, you even had the Israeli prime minister fly to Washington to meet with Donald Trump and talk to him about that. In the meantime, you have the Ministry of Health, you have the Ministry of Public Service, and all the other government agencies in charge of public safety issue statements to the public telling them that they are on the ready. Hospitals have already been reminded of all the emergency instructions, what to do in case the war breaks out, how to move to safe areas, move to the parking lots, and so on. There have been reports about the expenses this will incur on the Israeli budget, but that the government is willing to make those, carry on those expenses if, in fact, a confrontation with Iran breaks out. And remember, the last time there was that 12-day confrontation with Iran that Israel initiated, there were thousands of Israelis who lost their homes, who had to be moved away because their homes had sustained a lot of damage. So the state is expected to cover all of that. Having come out of all those wars over the past 2.5 years, it's no small feat. But again, Israel considers this to be of strategic importance. So it has deployed air defense systems in strategic areas, and it has told the public they're on the ready, but it's still not a state of emergency, even though many embassies are evacuating or telling their citizens not to come to Israel because of the tensions.
Nour, thank you so much. Nour Odeh there in Ramallah on the occupied West Bank.